This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 149.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 149, and in today's episode, we will be talking about why your website isn't making any money, even though you've been doing it for months. And we'll try to figure out why exactly you're not making money and what you can do to change that. So tune in and enjoy the show. Very first thing that I'd like to talk about, that it takes time to build an online business. I know I've said it a million times in my blog posts, in my podcast episodes, but I still get people asking me how to build a website that starts making money within the first week or within the first 10 days, or how to make $5,000 in the first month. Then I also get questions from people that tell me they've been doing their website for a few months and still haven't made any money. And to answer that, once again, it takes time to make money. I can't give you a timeline, and nobody can, because we run different businesses, we work in different niches, we have different work ethics, we create different content, we market differently. There's so many factors that play a role in that. This is why nobody can give you an exact timeline of when you're going to make money. But I've noticed that a lot of new websites, especially that do affiliate marketing, take anywhere from 6 to 12 months to actually start making money, or, to get to a good enough level, which means $1,000 or more per month in income. But once again, it takes time. There's no shortcut to riches. There's no shortcut to success. You have to be patient and not just sit there being patient, waiting till something happens. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the effort. You have to keep on working, keep on creating content, keep on marketing, and keep on improving things until you actually start seeing the traffic, you start seeing those sales, and then you can improve more on that. And then you should keep on working and creating even more content. This is simply the way this game is played. All right, so the very first thing you should really pay attention to if you aren't making money is, are you actually getting traffic to your website? How much traffic are you getting? If you're getting only 5 or 10 visitors a day or even a month, you can't even start thinking about income. Income is not your problem. Money should not be something you concentrate on right now. You should be thinking about getting more traffic. If you're getting 1,000 visitors or more per month and you're not making money, then you should start thinking about different things. But at the same time, you should always work on getting even more targeted traffic. And when I say that, I want to make sure that you understand that the traffic that comes to your website, the people, the visitors that are coming to your website, are people who are actually interested in what you're talking about. They're interested in your products, they're interested in your content, because some people simply go to really, really bad quality websites where you could buy traffic. You could pay like $10 for 20,000 visitors. But those visitors are bots. They're not real people. So there really is no reason for that kind of traffic, for getting traffic. Your goal is to not simply get people to your website. Your goal is to get people who are interested in your content to your website. That's what we're trying to do here. And there are many different ways of getting traffic to your website. But yeah, that's the first thing you should pay attention to. Are you getting traffic? Are you getting at least 1,000 people per month coming to your website? If you aren't, then you should consider a few different things. How many articles are on your website? How many articles are you posting every single week or every single day? How long are your articles? Since I do spend a lot of time in that online marketing community, I've seen a lot of different sources pointing out that an average length of an article that's ranking on the very front page of Google is about 2,000 words. So if you're writing 300, 400 words articles, that's already a bad sign, because it seems like people want more details these days. Google simply isn't ranking articles that are very short and very thin. Your articles have to be of high quality, and usually that means they have to be pretty long because you need to go in detail. You have to dig deep into the subject that you're actually writing or blogging about. And right before we jump into your rankings, you have to make sure that your website is actually indexed, because ranking and indexing are two different things. Has Google actually picked up your website? And there could be some reasons why it hasn't. There is even a setting in WordPress which tells search engines to not index that particular website, and I've seen that happen to a few people. Normally this option is turned off by default, so you shouldn't worry about that, but it could be a reason, and it only takes a second to check. Simply go to Google search and type in your full website URL. If you see the result and it's your website, then it's fine, it's indexed, that's good. But if you don't see your website in there, then Google doesn't see it either, and there's no way you're going to get any traffic from Google if Google doesn't know that your website exists. So that's the very first thing you should do. Check if your website is indexed on Google. You could also do that on Bing and maybe a few other search engines. Okay, so you made sure your website is indexed. Now you want to get rankings from Google. And you want that because most of the free traffic and good traffic comes from organic sources such as search engines, Google, Bing, and many others. Are any of your articles ranking high on search engines? And when I say high, it has to be the front page. It has to be the first page of Google results, because most people will never make it to the second page of results. If you're on the second page, it's pretty much the same as not being ranked at all. So you have to be fighting for that front page rankings. If you start searching for your main keywords and you never see your website ranking on Google, then there might be a problem, and you have to figure out why you're not getting good rankings. Maybe going back to the very beginning of this episode, maybe you simply aren't posting enough content, and maybe your content isn't good enough. You might think that your content is of high quality, but Google might think differently. So the very first thing you should do here is to simply Google search your main keyword phrase and look through the top 10 results. These are your main competitors for that specific keyword phrase. You have to pay attention to what kind of themes they're using, how their website looks, how many images they have, how many words they have, and what kind of content it is. You have to read their articles and try to get the feel of the article. How deep are they going into the subject? What kind of information they're giving? And if you can write content better than theirs, then you have a higher chance of actually ranking on the front page of search engines. If you read their articles and you compare them to yours and you feel like your articles are of inferior quality, then it's not a surprise that your visitors and Google as well think the same about your articles, and this might be the reason you're not getting good rankings. Another thing you might consider is niching it down a little bit more and writing very, very specific articles. Just to give you an example, if you write an article that's called How to Make Money, well, there'll be millions and millions of competitors already ranking for the keywords phrase, and it's really, really hard to outrank them. But if you write something like How to Make Money with Amazon Influencer Program, that article has a much higher chance of being ranked well. And if you do what I just told you, if you pay a lot of attention and make it a really, really detailed article that answers every single question a person could possibly have about making money with Amazon Influencer Program, then you have a much, much higher chance of ranking on the front page of Google, getting the traffic, and potentially converting the traffic into sales and into money. The next thing you should look at is your website loading speed. Does your website take a lot of time to load? And you have to test that on mobile, and you have to test it on desktop as well. And there are actually websites where you could put in your URL name and the website is going to test the speed for you. If your website takes too long to load, then Google is not going to rank it well either. If that's the case, then you'll have to do more research on the subject. You'll have to figure out why it's not loading fast enough. And usually it's caused by either bad or slow hosting, images that are too big on your website, some scripts that are too complicated and take a lot of time to render. There are many, many different things that could come in play and slow your website down. And I'll put in some links to services that will help you figure out what's going on. They'll show you your loading speed, and they'll give you some suggestions on what you can do to decrease that loading speed. Because the faster your website loads, the better it is for Google and for your website visitors as well. If you aren't using Google Analytics yet, you're committing a crime against your own website. You have to use that to see what your bounce rate is, how long people stay on your website, and many, many other things that will help you understand if your website is performing well. Another thing you should pay attention to is internal linking. It's very important, and I see a lot of beginners completely fail on this one. So internal linking, meaning that you link from one article to another. And it can't be just random links. It has to be something something relevant. So let's say a long time ago, you wrote an article explaining a very specific diet. Let's call it a fruit diet. Now today you're writing another article about different kinds of diets, and you mentioned that there is this fruit diet. So what you do at this point, you take that keyword phrase, let's say fruit diet, and you simply link it to your older article. This helps Google see how your website works. It helps Google understand that those articles are relevant. It helps to keep your readers longer on the website, because when they click on that link, they aren't simply leaving your website. They're staying on your website, simply going to another page of it, and that helps a lot. Recently, I read this very interesting case study. Unfortunately, I can't remember where I found it, but if I find it again, I'll link to it from the show notes. So these guys took an article they already had on their website, and they started linking to it from other articles within the same website. When they began the experience, the article was ranked number 29, meaning the third page of Google results, meaning nothing really, because nobody goes to the third page. And when they started linking internally to that article, I think they created something like 20 or 30 internal links. And within 7 months, which, is a long time, but after 7 months, that article jumped, or should I say slowly creeped up to number 4 ranking on the front page of Google. So 29 to number 4 in 7 months by simply adding internal links on relevant articles. So think about that. This is a very important one, and a lot of people, especially beginners, are missing this one. Last but not least, when it comes to good rankings and good traffic, is backlinks, of course. Are people linking to your website? Are people linking to your articles? This is still a very important part of SEO. Google still pays attention to websites that are getting links from other external websites. If nobody's talking about you or your content, it's actually pretty bad, and you have to fix that as soon as possible. There are many strategies of doing that, and I'll mention just a few of them on this episode so you get a better idea. So the first one, you could reach out to other websites and other blogs in your industry and let them know about some of your best content. So if you have a dog training resource, you could find one of the main websites or one of the big websites that talk about dog training and tell them that you wrote this amazing article on very specific part of training a poodle or something. And if your article is that amazing, they might actually link out to you because they want to give value to their visitors and they want to help people learn more. So if you provide them with that great piece of content, of course, they will link to you. You could also make a list of the best articles in your industry. This is pretty simple. So you could make a list of, let's say, 20 best dog training resources online, and you give them links and you explain why you think it's a great resource and why you love their content. And once that article is published, you could contact every single website that you mentioned and tell them that you wrote about them. Many of them will be happy to link back to you by simply telling their visitors, check out this website who mentioned us, or check out that blog because they're also doing dog training resources and they're really cool. If you want to get a better idea of this, I'll link to one of my articles from 2016. It's basically a list of 30 amazing books that talk about marketing. And once I published that article, I contacted most of the authors on that list, and many of them actually linked back to my website, or at least gave me a mention on their Twitter account or their Facebook account, which is also cool because I got some visitors from there. But the best, of course, were the ones that linked back to my websites because it gave me some backlinks and it helped me get higher rankings on Google for that specific article. Another thing you could do is, once again, reach out to those blogs in your industry and offer to write a guest post on their blog. Because let's admit it, if you have a blog or website, you're always looking for fresh content, and you could offer to write an article for them, for their blog, completely free, with only one backlink going back to your website. That's it. And many blogs will be happy to collaborate with you. My point here is that you need to get in touch with other people in your industry, and you need to start getting people linking to your website. You need to start getting people talking about your brand, your blog, and this is how you're going to get those backlinks, and this is how you're going to get better rankings and more traffic. Now, what if you actually do have traffic? What if you have visitors coming to your website, but you aren't making any money from them? Well, that's a completely different issue, and you have to look into this one as well. Are you actually monetizing your website, and how are you monetizing it? If you're selling your own product, that's one thing. Your sales page might not be good enough, or there might be not much interest for this specific product, or there could be so many different things. If you're simply trying to sell banner space or ad space on your website, that's probably not the best way to go about it, especially if you don't have too much traffic, because people don't like banners. People hate banners. They ignore them. People use ad blockers to not see any banners. Banners are things of the past, so you shouldn't use those if you're trying to make money off your website. Even those little widgets, that show a product on Amazon, somehow people completely ignore them because there might not be banners, but they seem like them, and people hate them. People got over them. So if you're trying to sell products as an affiliate, it's a much better practice to actually link to those products directly within your content, within your sentences. You also need to entice people to click on those links. You could say something like, well, the lowest price for this product I have ever found was on Amazon, and you could check it out here. Right? It's pretty simple, but you're telling people what to do, and they will do what you tell them. They will click on that link. Another thing that I've mentioned a few times already on this podcast is using heat maps. It's a free plugin for WordPress, and that plugin basically tracks your visitors' behavior on your website, and it shows you where people click on your website. If you see that nobody clicks anywhere, then there might be an issue. Once I had an article that was bringing quite a few sales in, and when I installed heat maps on it, I noticed that one of the very top images on that blog post was getting a lot of clicks. Like most of the clicks from people on that page went to that image, and that image was not linking anywhere. So what I did, I simply linked that image to the actual product that I was selling as an affiliate, and my revenue grew by a lot from this single post and from this single mistake. Let's call it that way. I didn't know that people were clicking on it, so I was missing out on a lot of sales. Once I figured out that was the problem, I fixed it. So use heat maps or something similar to see where people are clicking, where they're looking on your website, and what they're doing on your website. Another thing that I also mentioned rather often is that you need to build your email list. If you aren't building one on your website, I don't know why you aren't. You could start for free or with a very, very low investment. And it's very important because Amazon might change some rules in their affiliate program and you're not going to like those changes. Or another platform that you're using for traffic might shut down and you're not going to get traffic anymore. There's so many factors that could kind of put a dent in your business. But if you have a list of loyal subscribers, an email list, you could always get in touch with them whenever you need and tell them that maybe your website moved to another address or whatever you want to tell them. Entice them to buy something, run some promotions, simply be able to get in touch with them. And that's something that you will control, not Amazon, not Google, not YouTube. You will be controlling that customer base. They will be your clients, your customers. Another thing that you should consider, and if you are following any of the big blogs, you'll see that pretty much everyone is trying to do that in one way or another, is being everywhere. A lot of brands are not only going to social media, they're starting their own podcasts, they're starting their own YouTube channels, and I'm not only talking about big brands. There are many small bloggers who are doing the same thing, because if you are on many different platforms, there's a much higher chance that people will find you. And who knows, maybe most of your audience hangs out on YouTube and they prefer video content. And if you never try that and if you don't do your research, you might be missing out on a lot of traffic and a lot of sales as well. If you are on Facebook, you might have noticed that fan pages aren't doing too well and you have to create a group because this is where it's at now. If you're using Facebook for marketing or for promoting your brand, your product, you pretty much need to have a group now because a fan page doesn't do much. And if you do have a group, then you should consider doing live videos. Those are really great and those are getting more and more popular. And I think with time, you simply wouldn't have an option. You'll have to do that because that's how most people will consume their information, through videos and live videos. So you should consider jumping on that trend sooner than later. It'll help you become better by the time everyone else is doing that. Last but not least, if you don't see too much traffic coming to your website and you don't see the traffic growing, you don't see the traffic converting, and you've tried everything, your content is amazing, you rank well on Google, yet you still aren't making money and it's been 6 months or even more that you've been working on your business, well, maybe you should really audit your niche selection. Maybe you simply went for a niche that doesn't have the money in it. And it happens sometimes. There are some topics that people want information for, but you can't really make money in them. It's rare, but it happens. And if that's your case, you have to wake up and probably consider shutting that down and moving to another niche, to a more profitable niche. Today, in 2018, I still get emails from people asking me if it's a good idea to start a website that sells fidget spinners, because people say that, oh, you could get them really cheap in China and then sell them at a markup in the US and other Western countries. Guys, seriously, fidget spinners? That was a trend that lasted for a month or so and it completely died. If you're gonna jump into selling fidget spinners today, of course you aren't going to make any money from that niche. It's simply a bad selection and it was a trend that was bound to die sooner than later. Alright, that's it for today's episode. If you have any questions about today's topic, or if you want to talk about a niche selection or anything of that sort, feel free to reach out to me by email or simply go into extrapodcast.com/149. This is where I'll be putting up show notes page for today's episode along with some resources. Also head over to extrapodcast.com/iTunes in order to subscribe to the show, as well as extrapodcast.com/Spotify in order to follow the show on Spotify. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.